So on today's episode of This Old Mannequin, we're going to talk about watermelon. Nope, not that stuff. That stuff. Water-Melon by Michael Davey. Welcome back to This Old Mannequin. I am excited about this episode because I've been waiting to make this for a long time. This is one of my favorite prosthetic mediums that we can make for moulage in healthcare simulation, mass casualty, damage, disaster, and things like that. And I just love it. So for years and years and years, latex was a thing. And since we're in healthcare simulation, it's not a thing for us anymore. We need to avoid it at all costs because of the allergy. We're in medicine. It's just not best practice, especially when there are other materials out there that work just as well or even better. One of those materials is watermelon, and I've been using this forever. It's great. When you work with it, its consistency is kind of like Elmer's glue. It's a white creamy liquid, and you slosh it into a mold, a flat mold usually, whatever injury you want, and then just let it dry. Now, notice I didn't say pigment. Don't do it. You don't need to pigment this stuff. Why is that? Well, we'll get to that. So, slosh it in a mold. Find whatever mold you like. I've got this one here that's made out of Smoothcast 300 by Smooth-On, and it works fine. Actually, I really like using it in stone molds. This is an UltraCal 30. And this has actually got it in there already. So we slosh it in there, we let it dry, just like we did with latex years ago. But we don't pigment this. Well, why is that? Because in the end, it's going to come out looking a lot like something like this. Okay, now, that doesn't look like much, I know. And it's powdered, so we'll have to get the powder off of there and things like that. So when we talk about prosthetics, all of these prosthetics, usually we have to have some sort of glue, some sort of adhesive. That can be Prozaid, that can be Dermatac, some silicone-based adhesive, Telesis, things like that. Well, whatever glue you use, you need to make sure you're using that remover that works with it and will allow it to safely remove off the mannequin or the person. Well, not with this. How is that? Well, because you actually apply it with just 99% isopropyl alcohol, which you know is one of my favorite materials. So all I have to do is spritz this on the back of the prosthetic, then spritz it maybe on the person, usually I'm doing this with people, and then go ahead and stick it on. Okay, so I'm going to do that real quick. Now, this is one of my damaged pieces. It's not the best. It's got some bubbles and that sort of thing. But if you notice, by not pigmenting it, it's going to let my skin tone come through. So in mass casualties, in moulage, you don't always know what victim is going to come up to you, who's going to volunteer, get paid for, or whatever. And because of that, you don't know the skin tone. And when we talk about skin tones, it's a big deal about being respectful. Whenever I teach a course, I always tell my students, you have to have a plan, and you have to have a way of being respectful and being good. So one of my plans is I use a lot of watermelon-based injuries. So as you look right now, most of my skin tone has come through on this, and this is just a simple gunshot. Well, now all I have to do is grab some of my favorite pigments, which are the alcohol-based pigments. Now, traditionally, I need to have this as my backup. This is my number one. I usually go straight for the FX palette, then this is my backup. But since my skin tone's showing through on this, I don't need that. All I have to do is color the wound, put some blood on it, and call it a day. I'm going to do this very quickly. So we're going to put a few pumps in there. We're going to try to have a little bit of patience and let that actually soak in. Get my brush in there. Have more patience. You all know I don't. And this is just going to be very rudimentary and basic to show you the gist of it. So I've colored the wound. I can go in there, I can add other colors, I can add depth, I can go in there and add some black and things like that, but I'm just showing you how quick I can apply this, throw some color on, then say I want a little redness. I want to add a lot more in there. We're going to take my favorite tool, chip brush, cut down halfway. Just add some quick redness. That's a hugely sharp edge right there. That's a step off. You could actually like trip on that. But for the sake of just showing you here, it'll work. By flicking on some pigments, I hide the color in there. Then I'm going to grab some blood. Michael Davey has all kinds of products out there. It's amazing. You can get lost in his website. You spend a lot of good money, but you'll never be sorry. One of the things he has is his blood, which is hemoglobin. And I don't know if I've ever opened this. It's probably sealed. I have a tendency of spilling blood all over. But this is an awesome little blood, so I can add it on there. And I probably didn't mix it well enough, but let that go and send somebody out to the field with that. Very quick, very easy. It's a wound that I could get on there. Now, a lot of times we're doing this in summer, so people sweat. And everybody out there that's ever glued something to a human knows people sweat, and the edges peel up or just straight falls off. If that does that, all I have to do is spray another bit of isopropyl alcohol underneath it, stick it down again, and I'm done. So I don't have to have a glue. Well, because I don't have to have a glue, I also don't have to have a remover. You want to be kind to skin. You might use a little isopropyl myricate, but on myself, just to remove, I peel it off. Now this was just put on there, so it's a little bit gummy, so it's probably going to leave some residue. You want to make sure you have a good makeup remover to really get everything off, but for the most part, I can just peel it right off. Now, the question with every prosthetic I get is it reusable? No, don't do it, because all of my ickies from my skin are on that now, and unless I'm maybe applying that back to me, but if I've been wearing that all day, I'm sweaty, I'm nasty, I don't want that stuck back to me. You don't need to. You just make sure that you're making up enough. You buy a good bottle of it, and you make them up well before the event. These things keep in your kit forever. Some of these that I was showing you, I've literally made years ago, and they work great. We talk about putting them in the molds. What you want to do is, like I said, slosh it in the mold and let it dry, let it completely clear out. It's like a yellow haze when it's done, but you want to do that. Now, using a stone mold is what's going to be happening is it's going to pull the water away from it from the underside. Use a silicone mold or a plastic mold or something like that. It's just going to take a little bit longer to dry. Okay, no big deal. But once it's dried, you powder it on the back side with baby powder or something like that, or a no color powder. And then I just peel them out of the mold as carefully as I can. And then I powder the other side of it, and then I throw it in my kit. I've had them get folded over, usually with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, they'll fold right out. I'm usually always making these and making sure that I've got a stockpile of them in my kit, just for when I need them. Now, if you got an event coming up, you still need some time because they've got to dry or else they'll be a little white without doing that. But if you get in a real pinch, Mr. Davey thought of you and he's got a gelling agent. It's pretty awesome. You know, when you're mixing up some, you throw a couple drops of gelling agent in there and you throw it in your mold and it firms up enough that you can pull it out of the mold, get another batch in there pretty quickly. Don't have exact times for you, but believe me, it's a lot easier. It's a lot quicker. So the gelling agent is fantastic stuff. So that's that. The other thing you can do is, notice in the name it's Water-Melon. It's got water, so the base of it is water. So that means it's safe to work with. It doesn't have allergens and things like that in there, but also that means that you could do some different stuff with it. One of the things I like to do is cut it with water and put it on a very flat sheet pan. Well, why is that? Well, because if I do that, then I can make nice sheets of it. And I can put things in it like pigments, and I can put, say, blood powders and stuff like that, and I can make sheets of burn that stick on with just 99% alcohol, and then because it's a little thinner, it's a little harder to remove, so you might need some isopropyl myristate or a makeup remover, but you can literally crumple it up. I fold it usually, put it in your kit, and you've got it. It's just a staple. Another thing I'll do is I won't pigment it, and depending on what you cure it on, if it's got some, or not cure it, but dry it on, if it's got some nice texture, you can actually get some really neat texturing on there that will help you sell that burn effect or just whatever you're going for. It is just one of my favorite products. Now, if you're sticking it onto mannequins, PVC-based mannequins, like Laerdal skins and things like that, I have it tack up very, very well, just sticking 99% isopropyl alcohol on it. On the silicone-based mannequins, it sort of sticks on a little bit, especially if there's some texture. So like, I've got this Medi skin here, and it sticks pretty darn well. But if you have a sheet of silicone or some of the more flat mannequins, it probably isn't going to stick as well. So for something like that, you want to use a silicone-based adhesive, something like a Dermatac or a Telesis or one of the other ones that are out there. But that way you can glue it onto the mannequin. Whatever skin tone of the mannequin you have comes straight through. You dress the wound, you add some blood or whatever you need to do, and you go on with it. Afterwards, you just use that appropriate remover for that glue, and it should come right off. I've never had a problem with Dermatac. So in talking about this, obviously it's a liquid. It's got that kind of Elmer's glue, very thin sort of texture on it. It's great for flat molds. Now, the really neat thing is, and I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but if you have a three-dimensional mold, a curved mold, or a closed mold, or something like that, you haven't had a real good way, because if you pour this in there, it's just going to run right out, up until now. So now, he came out with his cream. So this is almost like a Pros-Aid transfer cream, where you can have very thin appliances, or you can have three-dimensional appliances and things like that. So this is their paste. So this is the Water-Melon cream, which is in a paste, thicker consistency. So I cannot wait to play with that, and there'll be another video on that when I unlock all the fun things to do with that. Just kind of a shorter video to talk about Water-Melon. I really think you should probably have it on hand. The only caveat I will say, the only thing you have to be very cognizant on is, once you open this, you've got about a year until things start to dry up. And when they do, they can completely dry up, or they can at least have an encapsulation and the inside's okay. But you want to kind of cognitively think that I don't need a gallon if I'm not going to have the time to make a gallon's worth of stuff over a year. So this is my favorite size I use. And every once in a while, you know, like I'll keep it in things like this, and I just walk up, I shake it up, I see if it's starting to get chunky or anything like that. If it is, I actually like when it gets chunky because that's what I'm going to make my sheets of burn or sheets of the watermelon, because then I can get all kinds of different texture. So don't, if you forget and you walk up and there's some chunks in it and it's not solid yet, don't freak out. Just use it. Chop it up, twist it up, tear it up, things like that, and use it. Don't just throw it away. If you're going to throw it away, my mailing address is, well, you can find that out later. But anyways, that's the short and narrow on watermelon. I really want you guys to use it. If you have questions, make sure you're adding those in the comments on any of the social media or on this video. If you get problems, let us know. We want to help. So our community is big like that. The other cool thing is if you find something really cool, make sure you're sharing that. Make sure you're actually telling others what you do. The cool thing about what we're all doing is when we network, we all grow. My name is David Schablock. This is This Old Mannequin. Stay tuned for more content. If you have an idea for a show, make sure you come to our website and submit that. If you have questions and things like that, make sure you let me know. I love when I hear from people that watch the videos. Let me know that, you still like this sort of thing. Till then, have a great day and keep simulating.